Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Barry Cryan is a business and time optimisation coach through his business DoMoreBetter. Barry feels that networking is much more powerful than paid advertising. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Barry.
Good to be here, Liz. Thank you.
Now, your current business is all about time optimisation and coaching business owners to get more out of their time. But I know that that's not always been your line of work. So what was your previous career, Barry?
Yeah, that's a good question and a good place to start. But in another life, I was a safety engineer. That's where I studied and trained, and that's eventually where I worked. Worked in mainly pharmaceutical industry here in the northwest of Ireland, companies like Abbott and AbbVie and Allergan, and that's originally where I started in terms of my career. So it led me my career led me on a path I never maybe first seen myself taken, but yeah, that's ultimately where it all started.
Yeah. And what was it that attracted you to that sector in the first place?
It was, I think, it was essentially the way my brain works. So I'm very kind of engineer type brain in terms of I see things in terms of binary, in terms of ones and zeros, and I knew it was a career where I knew exactly what I was going to get out of it. If I had done something else, like maybe business, like there's so many different other avenues you could have gone down. Safety engineering, it's very clear where I'm going to be. I'm going to be working probably mostly in maybe construction or pharmaceutical industry here in Ireland, and it's going to be as a safety engineer. And I think it was just the way my brain has always worked, and I think that's why now, in terms of what I do, it also works well because I work well with systems, and I work well with I think binary ways of thinking.
Yeah. So how long did you work in engineering?
I would have been about 12 years. Yeah, 12, 13 years in total. So I studied for about 5 years. I was maybe 12, 13 years then working in the pharmaceutical industry in Ireland. So yeah, good chunk of time.
Yeah. And so what prompted this change of direction?
Well, it was going back, I'd say about going back 10 years maybe ago. I just came down with these flu-like symptoms. I just like generally unwell. I thought it was initially maybe cold or flu, something like that. But the symptoms got progressively worse, and I started to realize, like after a couple of weeks of this, I'm not getting any better. There was something else at play here. Started going to doctors and stuff. They couldn't find any answers, and I just started getting worse and worse and worse in terms of a couple of things that was happening, like very bad brain fog. I ended up losing most of my short-term memory. I had very little short. Like I could be having a conversation with you, Liz, and we could be a minute into a conversation. I would not remember what we had first started talking about. So very bad short-term memory. I had like all these aches and pains in my legs, very bad chronic fatigue. That was probably one of the worst things. I struggling to do a day's work essentially, and that's where all this started for me, because at that point I've actually ended up for 2.5 years going around trying to find answers about what was actually happening. No doctor or consultant actually could get to the bottom of it. So I had to start finding a better way to live and work, so I could get more out of myself with my reduced capacity. So that's where it all started. I essentially started going down the whole rabbit hole of, I looked out and I said, look, there are people out there that are doing so much more than me. And yes, they're probably in the full of their health, but what are they doing that I'm not?
Yeah.
The likes of Branson and Sheryl Sandberg and all these other people out there that were, many multiple million and billion-dollar businesses. So I started going down that whole rabbit hole of systemization, of performance. And I started taking some of what they learned, battle testing it, using it for myself, taking what worked for me and applying it, seeing commonalities, started utilizing those. And eventually I got to the point where I was operating at a completely different level of performance. I essentially was getting 4 or 5 times more out of myself at that time than I was when I was healthy before, without these tools and systems that I developed. And I still didn't really think much of what I was doing. I was just wrapped up in my own world, really, while I was still trying to get myself right. And anyways, through a freak series of coincidences, I ended up in the Czech Republic, basically in a specialist centre for an autoimmune condition. And I was a month out there. They discovered this is what I had. They didn't really know much about it in Ireland, so I ended up out there in a specialist clinic. There's one in Czech Republic, Germany, and the US. There were 3 options. Czech Republic was cheaper, so that's why I ended up there. And it was out while I was out there. I was basically a month on my own out there in a room that I used to go in out for treatment during the day. It gave me a lot of time to think about me, my life, and I started thinking about, well, I have a scale and a system that allows me to tap into a whole new level of performance. Like, I thought about the office at home, at work, and I thought, well, this person's using sticky notes, and this person has a calendar, and this person has no system whatsoever. I started to realize that maybe I took what I had for granted, and I just started helping out people a little bit more, and that evolved into doing some free stuff online. And when I started to see results at each stage of the process, people actually doing well with them. So I started to see maybe there's a little bit more on that. And that's where my whole journey started, essentially. And, over COVID, like a lot of people, started getting a bit braver with this stuff, putting out stuff online. And that's where it really started to take off then. And yeah, it basically evolved from that point over a period of years. Initially 10, 12 years ago when I got sick, to this point now where this is literally what I do full time with business owners.
And how is your health now, Barry?
It's really good. It's really good. I would say it's good, but I have to mind myself in terms of I have to eat right, I have to look after myself, I have to exercise, I have to get the right amount of sleep. I would find myself slipping if I don't do those things. But it's a good motivator to keep doing the right things as well, so I won't complain about it. But no, it's really good overall.
Yeah. So tell me about the system that you've come up with.
So it's based around my FEST productivity formula, and what it is essentially is what it's about reducing micro decisions. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, everything we do in our life is a micro decision. Say in our work life, whether you answer the call or the email or the text, or we do that big thing, or now there's someone looking for us over here, or the phone is ringing. What happens is all these things become micro decisions about what to do and how to do and when to do it, and all these micro decisions for us stack up. Even that's just work life. Then we have all our personal stuff, the household stuff, what to buy, when to buy, will we eat this thing, we'll do in our health. There's so many micro decisions we have to make every day. And it's so difficult to get them all right and make sure we're doing the right thing in the most effective way and the most efficient way. It's really difficult. If you were to zoom out from most people, maybe even most of the people I deal with, which are business owners, progress becomes random, because what we're doing is we're not making, not all our actions and decisions and steps forward are in alignment with the outcome that we want to create, because we're trying to get all these micro decisions right to get there. And what we're doing is we're scattered. So what good systems do, this system, it allows us to massively reduce the amount of micro decisions and create predictable outcomes, but also create efficient outcomes. So we can get there to that end goal or to where we want to be, but we can get there in the fastest, most efficient way. So it's like a good system is like a vehicle. It's like a vehicle to bring you to a certain destination. And the way I often think about it is, say you're traveling down the road and you're a certain destination in mind. Every micro decision you have to get right in your day is like another friction point. And it just slows our momentum a little bit, and then we have to build up momentum again, and then it slows it again, or we go from a tangent down this road or this other road. If that was the case, then it would really take us so 50 times, 100 times longer to get to the end destination if we even get there, But a good system will massively reduce its micro decisions. So it gets us there, but it gets us there in a faster, more efficient way. And in simple terms, that's what my systems do,
Yeah. So who are you working with, Barry? What kinds of businesses?
That's a great question. It's generally smaller business owners, generally 1 to 15 employees, and a really wide range at that. So electrical contracting businesses. We have, hospitality sector, pharmacies. This guy who just started working with us, he's a pharmacy, financial services companies. Really, there probably isn't many small businesses that we haven't worked at. The probably only businesses that really we can't help massively is maybe the solopreneur that has maybe say a plumbing company, and he's the only one on the ground with the tools. There's only so fast you're ever going to work. So and the gains outside of that probably aren't enough for us to maybe work together. But outside of that, it's fairly wide ranging,
Yeah. And so what do you do for your clients, and how do you work with them?
So the first thing I would do is just touched on there, I start with the end in mind. So it's like we can't hit a target we can't see. So what I essentially do is I dive into what happens to a lot of us, and myself can happen, myself included. It's too easy to get bogged down in the here and now, and let's try this thing, or maybe this thing is wrong, we'll do something else. And what happens again, progress becomes random rather than everything being in alignment with the outcomes that you're after. So what I do is I park everything that's happened now, the good and the bad and the ugly. I park it all and I focus on what does that future want to be. And I help build out that ideal future outcome with them, the vision, how that all is going to look. And I help reverse that, engineer that into something that we can build the systems around it. So it's almost like when I know what the end is going to be, it's much easier to join the dots backwards to see, well, what do we need to do to get there? And then what I do is I map the systems around that roadmap there. So it's like, again, going back to the road analogy, if I know where you are right now and I know where you're going, all I can do is I can map the systems around that business, then the system being the vehicle to help that person or that individual or that business to create those outcomes. In simple terms, that's how it would work.
Yeah. And where are your clients, Barry? Are they local to you, or are they spread further afield?
They are mainly Ireland, UK, a little bit of US, some Canada as well. I'd say 80% are Ireland, UK. And the beauty about it is, it's like the beauty about living in 2026 is I can help people right across the world. It's all done over Zoom, and it allows me to help people much further afield rather than maybe years ago the person that was in driving distance. And it's a real powerful way to get out to more people, and I'm sure people even further afield.
Yeah. And so how long would you typically work with a company for?
It ranges a bit depending on what they need, but if I was to average it down, I would say you're looking at 10 to 11 weeks generally, as an average, in terms of the full process from start to finish, where we meet people the first day, we build out that future, and then we ultimately build the systems in place step by step over that 10, 11-week block of time. The way I structure it is to get them results at each stage of the process as well. So we're not like waiting to week 8 or week 10 essentially, where they have what they need. The way it's structured is every hour they invest in me along the way, they're getting more than that time back for themselves and their business as well from an efficiency point of view. But 10, 11 weeks average.
And how much sort of time commitment is required each week during that block?
You're looking at about 2 to 2.5 hours. That's the time commitment. And it's almost like, someone asked me, recently about, what, if you see people, that haven't succeeded with this, who have those people been, and what are the commonalities? Well, I said the only people that don't really succeed with this process is the people that don't give me that bit of time. That is like the key to unlock the door, the key to unlock the results. You give me that 2.5 hours, and essentially you will get so much out of this process. You really, everything that we said at the start, you will get out of it. So you're looking at a time investment of that per week. And again, the time you invest, you're getting more than that back every week. That's the way I structure it. Because a lot of the people I'd work with, Liz, the cup is already full. They cannot take, the headspace is full. They literally don't have a minute extra in their day. The first thing I look to do is to empty out some of that time cup from a headspace and from a physical time point of view before I go loading anything else in. And then likewise for the remaining weeks, every time we add something in, we're taking time, and we're reducing that cognitive load on them as they go as well.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the results that your clients have seen.
So results, I'll talk about a guy that I worked with recently, Barry Flanagan. So he's a guy that just finished up with me recently, and he comes to mind because we actually just sat down. So what I typically do is I measure baseline at the start,
Mm-hmm.
and then we measure the results again at the end. So I just sat down with him recently to actually go through his inter-program results. So what he is, for context, he has 3 businesses. He's a brew pub, he's a gastro pub, and he also has a kombucha plant as well.
Mm.
So where he was at the start was in terms of long hours. He was 55, 60 hours per week,
Mm-hmm.
young kids, and quite stressed, but also quite in the business. He was spending probably 80% of his time in the business
Yeah.
rather than working on it. So essentially what our goal was to bring his hours right down to 35 hours per week, but on the meantime to flip the amount of time he was getting to work on the business. So essentially he was to get 80% of his time on the business now instead of just 20% of his time. There
Yeah.
are big goals at the start of this process.
Yeah.
So he could buy back time for his other ideas, buy back time for his family, and just start to enjoy the process rather than being stressed out by it. So when we actually met, he was down at 30 hours per week. That was just literally that last week.
Mm-hmm.
He's down at 30 hours per week now. He is getting up on that 80% of his time now on the business versus in it. More than that some weeks. And they're probably the 2 standout things for me in terms of the tangibles. But there's also the intangibles that are so important as well. In terms of how he feels, he's calmer, he feels more in control, he's more present with his kids in the evenings because he's not looking at emails. He's not
Mm-hmm.
thinking about all the moving parts of the business. Essentially what we've done is remove the baggage from him. He was the system. Now we've taken it off his shoulder and placed it back on an actual system.
So how many people do you think that you've helped since you started doing this, Barry?
It's over 6,500 now
Wow.
at this stage, yeah, at some level. In terms of the process that Barry Flanagan was through with his businesses, it'll be in around 200, the early 200s. Those are the businesses I work with at a deeper level, but between all, yeah, it's over 6,500 now.
Yeah. So let's have a chat now about networking. What part has networking played in your business?
Yeah, it's huge, really, because the power of network, like it's like I advertise, these Facebook ads and
Mm-hmm.
different methods to advertise, but I've never seen anything like that. The power of networking, so to speak, it is far more powerful than paid advertising for me, because number one, what you're doing is you're there's a trust factor that comes now,
Mm.
especially with things online and AI and all this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Rightly so, people don't trust things, a lot of the stuff they see online, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot for people to actually engage and actually to follow through and build a bit of trust with someone. But when you actually meet someone, you're in person or even online, in a room, generally, number one, you're all in the room together for a purpose. It could be a certain networking event. It could be, a launch. It could be, a conference. So they're generally kindred spirits in that they want the kind of same things out of it. You
Yeah.
have typically people that have a lot in common with, but it's so much easier to actually build up trust with people from a networking point of view. And that trust will come back to you over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
because even if they don't necessarily need, what you need, they will know somebody that does.
Yeah.
And word of mouth is probably one of the most important
Yeah.
ways to build trust in a business. Having good, better than any testimonial, it's better than any website, any advertising you can do. For example, I was at a conference in Dublin there just in January, and there some brilliant speakers, but the context that I got from that were worth, like it was expensive, or won't lie. The contacts I got from that were just so powerful. And again, they were actually more than that, because they knew people that wanted to know me. It's almost like I'd love to see the stats on it, but whatever that network you have around you, there's a multiplier effect on the amount of people that get impacted on that through the conversation they have with the next person, and the next person. And I just thought that was such a great reference point, that conference, because it's something that I'm looking to spend more time doing right now. It's very easy. I'll tell you a story now about the first day of that conference. We had basically had to go for a dinner the night before, and I was going in on my own. I was really nervous about actually. I speak online. I do all these things. I was more nervous about that than anything else I've ever done before. Room full of people, and I was like, "What? All these things going on. What if no one knows me? What if I've no one to speak to? What if I'm standing in a corner on my own?" But it was such a relief, like, because you go into a room, everybody's in the exact same position. Everybody is there on their own, and everybody wants to know you, get to know you. Everybody wants to talk. And but I felt so good after. It was like a muscle that got strengthened. And actually, multiple times since, I've done the same thing, and I've been fine about it. So it does. It's can be a scary thing to do sometimes, but you never regret it. And it's actually something I'm looking to do more and more now, moving forward.
Yeah, well, I'm very pleased to hear that. So my final question then, Barry, if people are interested in connecting with you and finding out more about what you do, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so my website is barrycryan.com, Barry, CRYAN.com, and then Instagram as well, @CryanBarry. You'll find me there. If you want to reach out or pop me a message anytime, I have some free resources that I'll happily send across, depending on where you are right now and where you want to go.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for being my guest, Barry.
Absolutely. It was an absolute pleasure, Liz. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.